Story 1. The blazing Arizona sun beat down on me as I pulled into the driveway after a long day at school. I was looking forward to locking myself in my air-conditioned room and firing up Call of Duty on my computer for the rest of the night. Both of my parents were gone on one of their frequent weekend trips, leaving me home alone until Sunday. I spent a few hours lost in an intense gaming session with my buddy Johnny before my rumbling stomach eventually forced me to come up for air. I wandered downstairs to throw together some dinner. As I was heating up leftovers in the microwave, I thought I heard a heavy thud come from the floor above me. I paused, straining my ears in the silence. Our old house was prone to odd creaks and groans, so I brushed it off. Probably just the pipes or the house settling. Still, when I returned to my room, I made sure to close and lock my bedroom door behind me, something I rarely bothered doing when home alone. Settling back in at my computer, Johnny and I resumed our virtual combat, trash-talking each other over our headsets as gunfire and explosions echoed from the game. About an hour later, during a lull between matches, movement from my doorway caught my eye. I had left the door slightly ajar earlier, and from the crack, I could see clear down the dark hallway behind me, illuminated only by the soft glow of a nightlight near the stairs. Squinting into the inky blackness, an icy chill ran down my spine. Was that the shape of a figure standing there? I shook my head, laughing at myself. Too many late nights staring at a computer screen were clearly playing tricks on my eyes. I turned back to pick my loadout for the next round, pushing any creepy thoughts from my mind. Johnny and I battled a few more teams before he had to hop off for dinner. My eyes were starting to grow bleary from staring at the monitor for so long. I should probably take a break myself, I thought. As I went to stand up and stretch my legs, my gaze landed once more on the thin shaft of darkness slicing into my room from the hallway. My entire body froze, goosebumps speckling my arms. There was definitely someone standing in the shadows right outside my room. I could see the outline of a man's shoulders and distinct shape of a head peering through crack of the door, almost like he was watching me. Slowly, I sat back down, my mind racing over what to do. Maybe one of my parents' friends had stopped by to check on me, but why wouldn't they have just knocked or called out to let me know they were here? Hardly daring to breathe, I ever so cautiously rolled my chair sideways towards the door, hoping to get a better look at the lurking form. The head in the hallway seemed to tilt, following my movements. A prickly unease crept down my spine. Swallowing hard, I leaned forward and swung the door fully open. Light from my room cascaded down the empty hallway. There was no one there. I stared hard into the surrounding darkness, half expecting someone to burst out at me. But silence hung over the upstairs, interrupted only by the pounding of my own heart. Convinced I was losing my damn mind, I jumped up to turn on more lights. Just as I stepped into the hallway, a paralyzing terror gripped me. The soft click of a lock sounded behind me, and I whirled to find a strange man standing inside my bedroom, one hand still resting on my now locked door. He looked to be in his 40s with greasy blonde hair and pockmarked skin. His blue eyes were unnaturally dilated and bloodshot. He took an unsteady step towards me, stringy hair partially obscuring his skeletal face. I backdoled until I hit the hallway wall, fumbling for something, anything to use as a weapon. The man continued his shaky approach, keeping those eerie eyes fixed on me. Up close, I could see his pupils vibrating erratically. "Wanna play?" he rasped, flashing blackened teeth. Before I could react, he shot out a trembling hand to seize my wrist. I wrenched away with a panicked cry and bolted for the stairs. Half stumbling in my haste, I slid down the banister to the ground floor, scrambling for the phone in the kitchen. Hands shaking violently, I managed to punch in 911, while also arming myself with the biggest knife from the block. I could hear the man's shuffling footsteps descending the stairs behind me. Gripping the knife before me like a shield, I retreated until my back hit the refrigerator. The man shuffled into view, weaving unsteadily. His dilated eyes bounced around the room before settling on my face again. He twitched his lips upward in a gruesome imitation of a smile. "No need to call," he slurred, glassy stare boring into mine. "I just wanted to play some games with you." He took another lurching step forward, sending me shrinking against the fridge. Before he could come any closer, the distant wail of the siren outside had him whipping around in dismay. He peered wildly towards the front door for a long minute, as the siren grew louder and louder. With surprising speed, he suddenly pivoted and raced out of the kitchen. Seconds later, I heard the front door slam closed. Still clasping the knife, I inched to the window and cautiously peered out. A police cruiser with flashing lights was just pulling up to the curb outside. The strange man was nowhere in sight. I wrenched open the door to let the officers in, my entire body quaking in delayed shock over my close call. After giving my statement and walking them through the house to confirm the intruder had fled, I sank weakly onto the couch, the day's events finally hitting me. I still have no idea how that freak got inside in the first place. But needless to say, I double-check the locks every night now before firing up another round of Call of Duty. Though I always make sure to keep one eye on the bedroom door just in case. Story 2. It was the summer before 9th grade, and like most 14-year-old boys, I was completely clueless when it came to talking to girls. My buddies at school boasted about their various escapades, heightening my anxiety over my own inexperience. In hopes of escaping this pressure, I lost myself in the fantasy world of my favorite online RPG game called Valoria. For months, I had been questing across misty forests and fire-breathing mountains with my guildmate, Raven. Her cool confidence and edgy warrior princess avatar captivated my nerdy self. We spent hours chatting about our mundane teenage lives as we battled magical creatures. She made me feel at ease in a way no girl my age ever had. One night, after a particularly harrowing boss fight, we were celebrating our victory when conversation took an intimate turn. Before I knew it, we were confessing our crushes on each other. My heart pounded as this beautiful, witty girl shared her growing affection for me. We ended up talking until sunrise, making plans to meet in person once the school year started, since she actually lived only 2 towns over from me. When 9th grade began in the fall, I kept expecting Raven to message me about arranging our meetup. But weeks went by without word from her. One night I finally saw her log online and eagerly messaged her. To my shock, she responded coldly that she had a boyfriend now and couldn't meet. Confused and stung by her abrupt change of heart, I signed off, feeling more dejected than ever. Over the next year, I withdrew deeper into gaming, spending less and less time interacting with people at school. My parents grew concerned over my isolation and tried limiting my gaming time. But I just snuck endless hours at night, hiding in the fantasy worlds where I felt most myself. By freshman year, my fixation reached new heights after discovering the MMORPG Dragon Reign. The medieval setting and customizable avatars enchanted my imagination. Before long, I was utterly absorbed, playing every free moment I had. My avatar rapidly gained power as I quested day and night. Eventually, I joined one of the top guilds led by a renowned warrior queen named Shadowfire. Her prestige and battle prowess awed me. During guild raids, I would follow her commands without question as we dominated our enemies. Afterwards, she would often message me, complimenting my improving skills. I swelled with pride at earning the praise of such a living legend. Over many late-night conversations, Shadowfire and I bonded over our devotion to Dragon Reign. She encouraged my dedication to powering up, telling me my potential surpassed any player she had ever seen. No one had ever believed in me like that before. I started craving our talks, waiting anxiously whenever she was offline. The game consumed my waking existence, but I was all too happy to escape my lackluster real life for the glory I felt in the magical realms of Dragon Reign. My 15th birthday arrived amidst all this, feeling meaningless outside the virtual domains where I passed most of my time. But that night, Shadowfire surprised me by gifting an epic mount for my avatar. I was blown away by her generosity. We celebrated over voice chat for the first time, and I was struck by how silken and feminine her voice sounded. Our friendship continued strengthening in intimacy. During one particularly vulnerable conversation, I opened up about never having my first kiss. Shadowfire responded that she wished we didn't live states apart so she could be my first. My pulse quickened at the thought, astounded that this celestial goddess saw me as worthy. Eventually, I worked up the courage to ask if she wanted to video chat. The connection was grainy, but I could make out cascading silver hair and piercing violet eyes. The same stunning features from her famously beautiful avatar. My throat went dry, taking in her elegant jawline and full lips curled into a dazzling smile. She had to be 18 or 19 at least. I couldn't fathom why someone like her would give me the time of day. Yet here she was gazing back at me so affectionately from the screen. We continued chatting over video leading up to my 16th birthday. When I signed on that night, a message from Shadowfire awaited, informing me to pack a bag and meet her downstairs. Confused, I lingered uncertainly by the front door until movement outside drew my attention. A sleek black car idled by the curb, exhaust fuming in the cold night air. My phone buzzed with a text from a strange number. "It's me. Come outside." Heart suddenly hammering, I eased open the front door. The car's passenger window rolled down, revealing Shadowfire behind the wheel, her fairy-like features ethereal in the pale glow of the streetlights. "Get in, birthday boy," she called with a wink. "I'm here to collect that kiss you're owed." I stood paralyzed on the doorstep, pulse roaring in my ears. Shadowfire gazed at me expectantly as the moment stretched on. Coming back to my senses, I offered a shaky smile and small wave before backing inside and firmly shutting the door. I slumped against it, breathing hard. Had she really just driven all this way to meet me? And did I just lock her out? I couldn't reconcile this strange, beautiful woman waiting outside with the virtual goddess who had dominated my thoughts these past months. Sudden knocking at the door jolted me upright. Taking a deep breath, I eased it back open. Shadowfire stood haloed in moonlight on the steps, even more breathtaking in person. She held up her phone displaying texts I had sent gushing over her beauty in the game. "This is crazy, I know," she said with an apologetic smile. "But I meant it about being your first kiss." She lifted a tentative hand to my face. "We have something special. Don't you feel it too?" I shivered as her fingertips grazed my jaw, my addled mind struggling to process this surreal moment. Before I could react, she drifted closer, eyelids sinking shut as her lips hovered a mere breath from mine. Some vague alarm managed to cut through the intoxicating haze fogging my senses. I gently caught her shoulders, holding her back. Hurt flashed across her face. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I just thought, I mean in the game. Aren't you?" Understanding dawned in her eyes, and she let out a musical laugh. "Oh, the warrior queen thing. That's just a fantasy persona. This is the real me." She spread her delicate arms with an impish grin. I stared at her, a cold hollowness opening in my gut. "How old are you?" She waved dismissively. "I'm 19, but age doesn't matter." Taking my hands, she pulled me towards her car. "Now come on, let's have some fun." I stood frozen in place, the truth hitting me like a punch in the gut. This wasn't the mythical warrior girl who had enthralled my imagination all year. This was a grown woman who had groomed the affections of an innocent 15-year-old boy behind the facade of a fictional avatar. Revulsion and fury battled inside me as I wrenched myself free of her grasp. "I think you should leave," I choked out. Before she could respond, I stepped back inside, locking the door with trembling hands. I slumped to the floor as her pleas and apologies sounded through the door. The image I had foolishly built up of my perfect dream girl had shattered, leaving me once again alone and reeling from loss. Eventually her cries faded as she gave up and left. I sat staring numbly into space, feeling more stupid and naive than ever. It was time I stopped hiding from reality in glittering digital worlds filled with illusions. Life was never going to be like those epic adventures that had consumed the past 2 years of my life. I couldn't believe I'd almost let some stranger lure me away, because I was too blind to accept the world as it actually was, lonely, imperfect, and sometimes disappointing. But real relationships worth having take effort and courage that fantasy could never prepare you for. I took one last look at Draven Ring still glowing hypnotically on my computer screen before shutting it down and heading off to bed. It was time I logged out for good. Story 3. My thumbs pounding the controller, I slammed the circle button, executing a perfectly timed finishing move on the last enemy in sight. Boom! Victory Royale! I shouted, my character striking a celebratory pose amidst the carnage on screen. Dang, nice win, my buddy Liam chuckled through my headphones. I grinned, basking in the glow of my Fortnite dominance. But the warm buzz of triumph cooled quickly. As fun as the game could be, I was growing a bit tired of Fortnite's repetitive landscape. Over the next weeks, I found myself playing less and less, the matches becoming monotonous and mundane. By May, I knew my Fortnite fixation had run its course. It was time to move on to bigger challenges awaiting on the virtual battlegrounds, which is how I found myself re-downloading Apex Legends late one Saturday night. Dude, it's been ages since you played Apex, you're gonna suck hard. Liam teased when I told him of my new gaming endeavor. He was right. Upon logging back in, I winced looking at my dismal stats and embarrassingly low account level. The intricate maps and varied character skill sets felt daunting after so long away. But the crisp graphics and smooth gameplay quickly pulled me back into the arena. That first night, I stuck with the basic Legend Bloodhound as I fumbled to relearn controls and mechanics. But despite my rustiness, familiar instincts kicked in thanks to endless hours of Battle Royale training. We actually won a couple matches to my surprise. Later in the week, with my parents out for the evening, I fired up Apex, keen to continue my budding legacy in this dynamic environment. Liam and I battled a few intense rounds with some respectable finishes. But as midnight neared, he headed off to bed. Not feeling ready to log off just yet, I switched to playing solo. One particular match found me with a dominant lead, chasing the last few enemy stragglers scurrying around. Adrenaline pumping through me, I couldn't help trash-talking them a bit as my character mowed the unlucky losers down. Haha, too easy. I shouted to no one, swiftly eliminating the third-place squad cowering behind some containers. Now only one enemy remained between me and victory. Scanning the map, I spotted the glow of the final survivor holed up in one of the decaying high-rises looming over the battlefield. Gripping my controller, I launched towards the structure, determined to end this with a dramatic bang. I burst through a broken wall and into the dim rubble-strewn room, just as my opponents sprang out guns a-blazing. What ensued was complete chaos, strafing and diving to avoid fire as grenades exploded around us. But in the end, I managed to land some final devastating headshots to win the furious shootout. As the victory sequence unfolded, I whooped loudly, amped from conquering the map, essentially single-handedly. But my celebration was cut short by an abrupt cracking sound behind me. Swiveling in my seat, I scanned my dark bedroom uneasily. The noise seemed to come from one corner behind the couch. As I peered closer, movement in the shadows of my window startled me. Heart seizing, I leaped up, eyes desperately raking the night outside. Where I expected to see tree branches waving in the wind, the shape of a large man emerged instead. Fear spiked through me, realizing he was just standing there, face hidden beneath a dark ball cap, staring straight at me. Shivering despite the summer humidity, I sank back into my chair, pulse roaring loud in my ears. Who the hell was this weirdo outside my window at midnight, and why was he just leering in here without moving a muscle? I fumbled for my phone to call my parents or maybe the police, but it was already powered off on my desk. Crap. Eyes darting between the ominous figure and my dead phone, I weighed my options. I could make a break for the whole phone downstairs, but that would mean leaving this guy unattended at my window. Heart in my throat, I decided sitting tight was the best move for now. Releasing a shaky breath, I turned back towards my computer, avoiding looking directly at the lurker, but straining to hear any sounds of movement from his direction. Had to just be some confused drunk wandering by, right? Please just be on your way, you freak, I pleaded silently. For endless minutes, I sat rigid, pulse thundering in my ears over the unnerving stillness. Why wasn't this weirdo leaving? Sweat bloomed across my skin despite the chill needling down my spine. After nearly half an hour of terrifying quiet, curiosity overpowered me. With cautious breaths, I slowly rotated just enough to bring the window into view, hoping, praying, to find the yard empty once more. Instead, a surge of nausea racked me seeing the stubbly face now pressed to the glass, fogging it with each exhalation. Dark, manic eyes peered out from underneath the shadowed bill of his cap, sparking new alarm through my petrified body. A menacing grin stretched his lips, revealing blackened and missing teeth. Then the glass began to shake under the force of him, pounding a massive fist against it. Spiderweb fractures appeared after just 3 blows, the barrier threatening to shatter under his brutal assault. Pure panic seized me then. This psycho was trying to break in. I leaped up, stumbling backwards, while scrambling for anything to use as a weapon. My baseball bat, I realized with a flash of relief. Fueled by terror, I whirled towards my closet across the room where my bat waited. But I froze mid-stride when a quiet metallic scraping sounded behind me, the unmistakable slide of my window being forced open. Whipping back around, I gaped in horror as the colossal intruder hoisted himself up and over the sill. He landed heavily atop the shards of broken glass with a menacing crunch. We locked eyes, my entire body quaking, voice stolen by paralyzing fear. In all my years battling virtual villains, nothing could have prepared me for confronting real evil bursting into my safe haven. The mountain of a man straightened to his full towering height. His bloodshot orbs glinted with cruel delight at my obvious terror. Deliberate strides carried him closer as I backdoored desperately towards the door. With a thick arm, he effortlessly slammed my only escape route closed. Then his meaty paw shot out to wrap around my neck, massive frame pressing in from all sides. Rancid breath saturated the air between us as he forced me down onto my knees. "Thought you were untouchable, huh?" He rumbled, increasing pressure on my windpipe. "I'm here to teach arrogant brats like you a lesson in humility." Dread coursed through me, realizing then that I did recognize this monster. He was the final opponent I had trash-talked before winning the round right before this nightmare started. Dark spots swelled across my vision as his grip cut off my air supply. So this is how my story would end. Murdered in my own home by a disgruntled gamer I had pissed off without ever knowing. Just as oblivion crept into view, the distant wail of police sirens echoed outside. The crushing force fell away abruptly, and I collapsed limply on the floor, gasping raggedly. Risking a glimpse upwards, I spotted the hulking psycho scanning for an escape route, eyes widening over the increasing volume of sirens. Before I could even cry out for help, he lunged towards me once more. I braced fruitlessly for the fatal blow. But instead, his enormous hands closed ruthlessly around my left arm. Then, with a gut-wrenching crack, an explosion of agony erupted, white-hot and blinding in intensity. An anguished scream ripped from my throat, cradling my mutilated, limp arm to my heaving chest. I choked on wave after wave of torturous torment. Through the delirium, I saw him charging for the window once more. But the wailing police cars had arrived. His escape now blocked, the sadistic beast whirled on me, veins bulging in rage. He stormed forward, shooting a pile driver of a kick straight into my face before I could react. An eruption of mind-numbing suffering exploded across my already traumatized nervous system. Then the world scattered into nothingness as merciful blackness swallowed me whole. I drifted through silent darkness, suspended outside of the torture and fear devouring my final threads of awareness. Gradually, muted sounds and pain beyond description drew me back. Blarily, I blinked through crusted, swollen eyelids. Bright lights and antiseptic scents flooded my senses. I must be in the hospital, still clinging to life after that traumatic attack. I gingerly shifted to take stock, and searing fire immediately engulfed my splintered left arm. My face and torso throbbed in sync with my frantic heart rate. I released a ragged breath, which sent more anguish rippling across my ribs. But all things considered, I was alive at least, though in rough shape based on the state of my battered body. Fractured bones, bruises, and awful cuts covered me from head to toe. My parents sat slumped in chairs beside my bed when I stirred, relief washing over their exhausted faces that I had woken once more. As my vision cleared, I noticed 2 officers standing at the foot of my bed reviewing papers on a clipboard. The events that landed me here came flooding back in disjointed images of broken glass, deranged eyes, cracking bones. Unbidden, a whimper escaped me, chest seizing with renewed panic. But my mom gripped my good hand, anchoring me as I teetered on the edge of screaming hysteria. "Sure, Lukey, you're all right," she soothed, brushing gentle fingers across my forehead. "That monster is behind bars. He can never touch you again, my brave boy." Reassured by her words, my frenzied gasps slowed to ragged breaths. The officers took that as their cue to step forward, faces grim. "Son, whenever you're ready, we need your statement on what occurred 2 nights ago at your home. We want to make sure justice is fully served for the trauma you endured." Shivering at the memories their words evoked, I haltingly recounted the night's events: the late-night gaming match, man at my window, vicious beating when he broke inside. My parents' faces blanched hearing the disturbing details for the first time, fresh tears pouring down my mom's face. When I finished, the officers assured me the perpetrator would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for such a brutal assault. They also confirmed they had traced the initial threatening message during the Apex Legends match back to the attacker's IP address and gaming profile. "Seemed he was outraged over losing that final battle against you," one officer remarked. "He managed to track your location and drove straight there, fueled by irrational vengeance." A heavy wariness settled through me. All this horrifying destruction because of boastful words thrown out thoughtlessly mid-game. If I had just celebrated my trivial win quietly instead of puffing myself up, none of this real-life nightmare would have happened. When the officers left a short while later, I turned my face into my mom's shoulder, finally allowing the tears to fall. She smoothed back my hair, murmuring words of comfort as she did when I was small. But even her devoted solace could not dissipate the shadow of fear and pain shrouding my weary mind. The long days of recovery crawling by did little to pull me from the abyss of panic and despair dug by the attack. Nightly terrors woke me screaming as that monster's manic eyes and pummeling fists haunted my dreams. Migraines racked my brain from endless assault memories bombarding every quiet moment. My parents suggested I speak to a therapist, which I refused repeatedly at first, too overwhelmed trying just to heal physically. But their insistence, along with my doctor's mounting concern, finally drove me to schedule an appointment once discharged from the hospital. The compassionate therapist worked tirelessly to walk me through grounding exercises to manage panic whenever waves of memories or fear arose. She also helped me process feelings of self-blame for provoking such violence. I reluctantly began journaling, externalizing dark thoughts swirling relentlessly since the attack. Slowly, the light returned to my dreary life. I made the decision in those early days of counseling to leave gaming behind for good. Turning on a video game triggered instant stress sweats and flashbacks initially. My parents actually boxed up my entire rig to remove temptation during my mental recovery. Now 6 months later, twinges of anxiety still spike hearing certain intense sound effects from my brother's basement gaming sessions. But gone are the days and nights of hiding from life and human connections in violent virtual realms. I nurture new passions and relationships out here in the real world where actions have very real consequences. A truth learned excruciatingly well under that monster's devastating blows. My body may bear physical scars from that traumatic night for life, but my mind and spirit have found renewal through presence with family, embracing empathy, and deep reflection taught by my psychic journey since. I cannot change the pain dealt me, but I now can shape how I walk through this world and interact with others light years wiser than the taunting child I was.